Okay, it is 7 o'clock and I call the meeting to order for the Downers Grove Township meeting of the Board of Trustees for October 21st, 2021. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to start off with public comment. Wanted to remind everybody, residents will have the opportunity. Roll call, I'm sorry. We did not do roll call. Do roll call first.
Trustee Riccadati?
Here.
Trustee Stoll? Here. Trustee Okram?
Here.
Trustee Ferguson? Here. Supervisor Coltrane?
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. Now we will get to public comment, where residents may speak on township issues in general. Just as a reminder, residents will have the opportunity to speak during the public comment. Comments are to be directed to the supervisor. We ask that comments be kept to 2 minutes and address Downers Grove Township issues. Any questions or comments can also be emailed to the supervisor at dgtownship.com, who will read them in the public comments. Please refrain from profanity and personal attacks directed at people, and please be respectful of all listeners. We remind you, the public comments are not a Q&A session. Thank you very much. And do I have any public comments? Okay, Carol.
Hi, my name is Carol Soul. I live in Westmont, and it's nice to be here tonight. I noticed we don't have some of the things we normally have. We don't have agendas for the public. We don't have sign-in sheets for public comment. Maybe they're coming right now. I apologize. It's okay. And I want to point out that many organizations, public bodies, governmental bodies, have provide their entire packet in advance, minutes and interesting things like that, so that in addition to reading the things that are on the agenda that I have, thank you so very much, we actually know what the intent is to be talked about. I would encourage you to consider providing that sort of information in advance of the meetings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other comments? With that, we will move on to the motion to approve the minutes of the board meeting from September 16, 2021 as presented. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
And a second.
I'll second the motion.
Are there any comments? Sue, will you call the roll, please?
Trustee Riccadati?
Aye.
Trustee Stoll?
Aye.
Trustee Okram?
Aye.
Trustee Ferguson? Aye. Supervisor Coltrane?
Aye. Next up is the motion to approve the trustee audit and approval of bills and claims as presented. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
And any discussion? With that, Susan, would you call?
Trustee Riccadati?
Aye.
Trustee Stoll?
Aye.
Trustee Okram?
Aye.
Trustee Ferguson? Aye. Supervisor Coltrane?
Aye. Okay, next up is the motion to approve Resolution 2021-1021, reappointing James McCarthy as president for Gulfview Hills Fire Protection District. Do I go ahead, Reese? I do see him here. Do I go ahead and read this whole thing? Okay. You want to go ahead and read the resolution?
Whereas James P. McCarthy is a resident elector and current trustee of the Gulfview Hills Fire Protection District, and whereas the term of said James P. McCarthy expired on May 1st, 2021, and whereas James P. McCarthy has served previously on the board of the Gulfview Hills Fire Protection District and has expressed interest in continuing to serve on the board, and whereas under the provisions of the Illinois Revised Statutes, the Board of Trustees of Downers Grove Township has authority to and is charged with the responsibility to appoint trustees to certain fire protection districts, And whereas James P. McCarthy has appeared before the Board of Trustees for interview and appeal, and whereas in appearing to the Board of Trustees that James P. McCarthy will submit a copy of his statement of economic interest to the clerk and is fully qualified to serve as Fire Protection District Trustee. Now therefore be it, and it is hereby resolved that James P. McCarthy be and hereby is appointed a trustee of the Gulfview Hills Fire Protection District for a term to be completed by May 1st, 2024. Dated at Downers Grove, Illinois, this 21st day of October, 2021.
All right, thank you very much. So I hear a motion to approve this,
I'll make the motion.
and a second.
Second.
Susan, would you call roll, please?
Trustee Riccordani.
Aye.
Trustee Stoll.
Aye.
Trustee Okram.
Aye.
Trustee Ferguson. Aye. Supervisor Polcheck.
Aye. It is approved, and Jim, thank you very much for all of your time and effort that goes into serving on that board. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, appreciate it.
Next up, we have Jeff Grant, who is here from Downers Grove North High School. As many of you can have, if you've driven by the front of our building here, you will see some prairie grass and plants growing, and so he is here today to kind of give us an update and what the plans are going forward.
Yeah, sure.
Jeff?
Thanks. Try not to be too much of a teacher. So thanks for having us here and working with the high school. As you probably know, we're pretty landlocked at Downers Grove North, so you opening your doors and doing this partnership with us is monumental in many ways. So I was going to kind of rewind just to have a perspective of what we've done in the past and how this kind of got to where we're at right now. So background, about 6 years ago, a local resident, Dr. Andrew Hick, who works at Morton Arboretum, he is phenomenal man, but also a phenomenal scientist. He's senior scientist over there. I don't know if you're familiar with the entire layout of Morton Arboretum. You know, they have the illumination, all that kind of stuff that goes on, but they do a huge amount of research, and it's world-renowned research, and he is one of those world-renowned scientists. But he opened up his doors to our students to do a collaboration through the National Science Foundation. And so about 6 years ago, we started working with the kids and teaching the kids how to do real scientific measurements, specifically in herbarium specimens. So those are preserved specimens, kind of like you would get at a museum, but for plants, basically. Teaching how to do that stuff. And then kind of blossomed, so to speak, into senior or semester research projects where the kids were designing their own experiments, collecting their own data over the course of the entire semester. And him and many of his associates at the Arboretum helping guide the students as they were working with us as teachers. And then about 3 years ago, we switched to still working with the Arboretum, but working with prairie restoration. So taking local lands that have been changed over the years, maybe into fields for growth of corn and soy or into residential areas and trying to get them reclaimed back to natural environments. So what the Arboretum did was, you can kind of see in the background here, there's this field area that we bring our kids to, and this is Dr. Hip right here in the foreground, talking to our students about the research prairie that they have put together in an area where the public can't go to. So if you do or don't know, Morton Arboretum is a massive piece of land. And they have trails to go through it, and the public can pretty much walk where they want. But there are some areas that are kind of off limits where they're doing actual research. So the kids were allowed to go into the experimental prairie that the Arboretum has put together, and I'll give you kind of like a helicopter kind of view of this place, to learn how to collect real data on real plants. So this was a couple years ago. And then they started doing their own research in the classroom. So kids are growing a lot of the local species in the classroom and doing their own research. You can kind of see we've got native plants, and it's not just grasses, anything that's kind of blooming that brings a lot of pollinators that are local to the area. So the kids designed their own experiment. We have a bunch of places inside the classroom. You can see that this is well into the semester. You can't tell, there's snow on the ground down there. And this is from the classroom. You can see these things. So the kids are putting all these things together over the course of multiple months collecting data, and then they do full presentations to scientists and the teachers in the classroom. And they do like a scientific poster presentation. So this is what the Morton Arboretum has done. So perspective, each one of these little squares is 3 meters by 3 meters, right? So 9 by 9, with about a 1 foot, 1.5 foot walking space. So it's real narrow to walk through them. So the reason that you're seeing like tan versus green is some of the tans are what are called control plots, but they don't have plants that they put in. And in some of the plots, they put seeds as the starters, and some they put plugs. So plugs are plants that have already been grown before they put them into the ground. And then they have it kind of divided into like replications for scientific purposes. You try to do as many different replications and randomizations. And the great part is the kids go and see this as part of the first week and a half of school. So the juices start getting flowing of what it means to do real research and how to design your own experiments. And so for a long time at the high school, we've really wanted to have something like this on our own property so that the kids can walk to it and not take a bus ride. Not that going to the arboretum isn't fantastic, but it takes time, and it costs money and subs and stuff like that. So since your facility is so stinking close to Downers Grove North, we can walk here in a period, collect data, and then be able to walk back. So that has been a huge thing. So perspective, right? This is what a brand new plotted area. So this is photos from the Morton Arboretum when they were setting up their experimental prairie. You can see some plants in the background are very small, but those are what are called plugs. So those are maybe 1.5 years grown in a greenhouse. And here you can see they're laying down erosion blankets for seeds that they put down, which is what we'll end up doing here for some of the plots. I'll explain our timeline of what's going on across the back or front of this fish pantry portion of the building. So this is what it looks like after 3 years, right? So you can see there's a lot of growth in some plots. Those would be more plugs. You can see some are a little bit shorter, but there's definitely evolution of that property over time. And then they've got fences because they got deer problems. We don't have that problem. So there will be no fences around ours. So currently, right, we're at 2021, 2022. We've laid out about, all these plots out here are 10 foot by 10 foot for the kids. And we tried to put in walking spaces that would be ADA compliant, right? It's wide enough for wheelchairs to possibly go through. Obviously, we're on non-hard soil type things, but very walkable by the general public, but also for students as well. We got awarded a grant for $1,000 from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources that gave us the ability to put in a lot of the plants that you probably see growing outside right now. So those are all plug plants or student grown during the pandemic. Right? They grew them at home, they brought them in, we planted them in the springtime. We get all of our stuff from Prairie Moon, which is up in Minnesota. They have a huge warehouse and large fields where they harvest things and they grow things. So that's where we got our other seeds as well. So within that $1,000 grant, we got about, I want to say, I'm probably getting the numbers completely wrong. I should have threw it on the slide. Around $700 worth of grown plants and about $300 worth of seed. And that seed will be planted this fall. It seems silly to do that, but native plants do that all the time. So if you haven't noticed in the area, any native plant is already flowered, and it has its brownish heads, and maybe it's got goldfinches coming to it, eating the seeds and whatnot. This is when they seed out. And so those seeds sit under the snowpack for the winter, and that helps them break dormancy when it starts getting warmer, we get more spring rain. So we're trying to mimic that in the 4 plots that we rototilled up about 3 weeks ago. So those are completely barren out there. You'll see that in the picture. So we're going to lay erosion blankets on those seeded plots, and then we should end up seeing some growth in the spring. So spring of 2022, we'll do our first check for first year and second year growth. So some of the plants that are out there now will be their second growth. And the plants that we're going to put down as seed this year, it'll be their first growth. And then any of the stuff that we're growing in class right now, which all the students are kind of full tilt right now, getting experiments set up, will be planted as well as what we call supplemental, right? So there's bound to be herbivory, there's rabbit, if you haven't noticed, rabbits will eat this kind of stuff. And then you'll get birds, and you'll get other insects and stuff like that that'll eat stuff. So we'll be able to supplement the things that possibly get destroyed, right? It's just part of the process. We will possibly water as well as we go through things, but the beauty of native prairie plants is once they kind of get established within a year or two, you have to water them anyway. If you haven't noticed, prairies have been here for a long time. They are okay with droughts, right? So this is a picture of the new experimental prairie, very, very early spring. So you can see, we still had all the erosion blankets from when they fixed and finished the fish pantry. And there's the sign that is out front that designates the spot as a school habitat. It came from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. It's kind of hard to see because the stakes are kind of the same color as the erosion blanket, but we marked it all out. And things progressed, and so this is late summer, early fall-ish time period. You can see these first two plots here were all plants that kids grew from the year before. That's it. None of that was bought. That was all kids growing stuff from seed. And it's kind of hard to see because right at this time, a lot of the sunflowers were blooming, so like, oh, it's just yellow stuff. There's actually a lot of different species within here. That's wild bergamots. It's like a nice light purple color. We've got some milkweeds that are orange in here. You can see a couple of the oranges. So there's going to be a lot of diversity in color. And then these four back here are all from that grants that are plugs. See the landscape fabric on those four that are in the far back, those are the ones that are rototilled, and we planted this fall. So if you went out there now, you wouldn't see those blankets. It's just barren soil. But so about the 29th or so, kids are going to put the seed down and the erosion blankets on it, and it'll be set until we come back in spring. So looking forward, multiple levels of restoration. Our thought process is we'll be plotting more plants into the 1 and 2, the first ones that they planted in at the get-go, from the ones that are grown in the classroom. We've also bought more seed from Prairie Moon, and we'll have those plugs in the 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're going to sow the seeds into 7, 8, 9, and 10, and then early next spring we may cut 2 more plots, right? If the township's okay, we would continue to prairie, but I didn't want to bite off too much more than we can chew. So we're going to manage what we have now, and then if it's going okay, we'll cut a couple more slots as we move forward, right? Because the thought process is you'll have this nice diversity over time where you can show the public this is what a nice prairie would look like after 5 years compared to 1, and patience is a virtue, right? Like things evolve and change and succeed over time. And that would be a nice thing, not only for the kids, but also for general public to see that thing. So from our perspective as teachers, the benefit is huge. And it was hard for me to boil it down to 6 bullet points. But they can conduct their own experiments on biodiversity, right? Biodiversity, amount of different plants, amount of different animals, and have it just a 10 by 10 space. They can collect data on invasive species versus native species. Invasive species are a big problem, I'm not sure if you're fully aware, but they tend to crouch out and squeeze out a lot of the native species, and if that happens, then we don't get as much diversity in all the beautiful butterflies and birds that a lot of the general public enjoys. We can get data on pollinators and herbivores, organisms that are eating these plants, or even pollinating, like this nice sulfur butterfly. And then we can mimic, also, the whole thought process, since Herrick is so close, is that our seniors will be able to teach the Herrick kids about this stuff as well, right? Eventually becoming the teacher themselves after we get more progress into the prairie. And then obviously, they're mimicking what's going on here and at the Arboretum for their own research projects for their semester work. And the cool part is, once again, kids will be able to experience this for all 4 years, right? There's so many classes that can use this. I just listed a couple that are coming off the top of my head. And if you don't know, right, courses are always changing. We have some solid ones at Township North that are always attended by kids. AP Bio, AP Environmental Science, I should have wrote, I don't know if you know what APES is, but AP Environmental Science, Bio 300, which is freshman bio, and Bio 400, which is freshman bio, and then Earth Science, another elective. There's so many different things you can do with it. You can do soil analysis, you can do all the things with living stuff as well, even water things. So what's the benefit for the public? The community going to be a beautiful thing for you to just walk through and observe. My thought process is eventually we'll have like a zoo. You go to a zoo to see animals. You walk up to the cage. That's pretty, mommy. What's that? There's a sign there that says, that's a red panda. Cool, I love a red panda. Well, our thought process is the prairie experimentals will have a bunch of different plants in them. But then we'll have little pots off to the side with what are called monocultures that'll be like, oh, this is a purple flower. What is it? That's a purple prairie coneflower. Oh, I see the same one there. The general public would be like, maybe I should buy those instead of begonias, right? Because every single year these come back. Begonias don't, right? So not only you save it, it might be a little bit more upfront, but you're going to have something that lives forever, basically, right? So we're going to eventually do something like that. But then modeling their own property, right? Education, obviously. Education is key, right? And increased native plants equals more pollinators, more wildlife. And from the perspective of other things, it's better for water management. These plants have very deep roots. They help retain a lot of water. So when we talk about times of drought, the ground gets really hard, it rains a lot, all it does is run off. If you haven't noticed that, right? The ground gets cracked and runs off. These plants can penetrate up to 9 to 10 feet down. That allows good drainage for the water in these areas. And then obviously better soils. And a nice walk through the environment, right? So finishing out, right, just a huge thank you to all of you in allowing this to happen for our kids. This is, you know, it's hard for me to not get emotional, but this is big. This is really big because there's only so much that we can do in a classroom. When you expand the doors, there's so much more we can do. So thank you to all of you and the general public for supporting this sort of thing, and obviously be more than happy to answer questions and whatnot. There's my email. I'm a public servant as well, so let me know. But thanks again. I hope that if you have questions about any of this stuff, or yeah,
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, was there, what's your question?
How many students do you see using it, down the road and now?
sure. So I mean, just this year, if I just counted AP Bio, we're at over 90 students. Just for Downers Grove North, 90 for AP Bio.
Coming in here and then...
And doing, yes, just if I count that group, right? So that's just 1 year. Multiply it over the number of years, you have that. AP Environmental Science, I think they have 2 or 3 sections, all around 30 apiece as well. There's if you take into freshman bio, there's a lot in freshman bio because every single student needs to take freshman bio. So now you're looking at a large portion of the school looking at this prairie at some point throughout their 4 years.
And how, forgive me for not knowing this.
No, no.
How often would you be coming in here?
I think it's dependent on how the project, so we've come here once so far, just to come and look and get the juices rolling for things. They'll be coming here next week on Friday to do the seeding. They'll lay down the erosion blankets. We're going to try to spread that out for the 3 groups so that they're all invested in that sort of thing. And then in spring, they'll be coming back probably 2 or 3 more times in the springtime to do follow-up and plant and things of that nature as well. So,
Love your enthusiasm, Jeff.
thanks.
I want to take your class.
No, you're more welcome. Come in anytime.
So Prairie Moon,
Yeah.
big variety, is that what you said?
Yeah, and they just, Morton Arboretum started it, so I just kind of steal some ideas, right? It was easiest to work with them. They were more than happy to give us discounts for stuff as well, and they're really quick. They're really quick about turning stuff over, so.
Well, I would suggest if there's someone in the township that does something similar,
Yeah.
it might be nice to keep the funds
Absolutely.
in the township, but I
For sure.
understand why you're using them.
Yeah.
So, again, a lot on your plate. So I don't know if it's going to hurry, but.
If you have ideas or anything like that, I know that there is one company that's out near, I don't know, I feel like, I live out in Batavia, right? I teach here at Downers Grove North, so it's like, once you hit Randall Road, it's like farm. But I know it's out that way, that there is another company, I think it's called Piso or something along those lines. I know that they grow a lot of plugs and stuff, but I don't know if they have the same amount of seed.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing for us as classroom stuff is working from seed, just because it's like, I can store seed for months and it'd be okay. And the kid, you know, whatever, but a plug, I gotta water it every single day. I gotta make sure that, you know. But yes, I totally agree. Totally.
I get it.
What's your enemy out here? Is there anything that could...
In invasive species is the biggest part, right? So if we stay vigilant, which we did, myself and a couple other teachers came this summer, because the first couple years are super important. If we can manage the crabgrasses and things of that nature the first couple years that the prairie plants are getting themselves established, they squash out the rest. That's the beauty. So we were collecting data over the summer as, well, I was pictorially, and I had a former student at the University of Wisconsin that was helping me out and take some data. If we can manage those pieces the first couple years, there's not that much to do after that. As far as other enemies, I don't foresee vandalism too much. You know, it's a prairie. Could somebody come with a spade in the middle of the night and steal? Sure, I'm sure they could, you know, but I don't think it would be monumental. Hopefully, in the future, we would have more signage for the public and kids to be able to see what's going on. Obviously, working with your group as sizes of that, placement of those things, but that would be the only thing I can see. I mean, if we're talking about other animals, rabbits are probably the biggest thing.
I was thinking, yeah.
Yeah, because there's two big roads, that kind of deters deer for sure, right? Deer is the #1 enemy of the Morton Arboretum. That's why they have the electrical fences up. I don't see a huge problem here. If a deer does come in, it's going to get spooked off pretty quick with cars driving down the street. So,
No more questions.
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I just had one quick story. Back in the day, we had Mr. Grant conversations every night at dinner. My daughter had Jeff for AP biology, and she just loved you and loved your enthusiasm and still talks about it.
Thanks.
Well, I can tell, and that this is a great project.
Yeah. Like I said, huge thank you to, and like I said, it's hard for me to not get emotional because there's only so much space we have in the classroom to be able to walk to something and have kids do something authentic where they own it, right?
All the difference.
All the difference.
Especially now if you can get hurt, so it's
Yeah,
almost a
well, that's what I'm
6 year
saying.
cycle.
Yeah. And then if the vandalism, if kids own it, they're not gonna destroy it, right? So,
Thank you.
thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you.
With that, next up is the supervisor's report. Do have a few things to go over. First off, we have had we have the cemetery last week, and we had several people out there picking up and cutting down some trees and limbs and stuff. Saturday from 1 to 4, 2 Boy Scout troops are going to come in. If anyone wants to go there, you are more than welcome to help out because we still need a lot of work to do on that. Also wanted to bring you up to date. We have started classes here in the room. We had, through People's Resource Center, we've had 2 classes so far of computer for seniors and also a ceramics class. And on October 28th, which is a week from Thursday, we are having a fundraiser here for the Friends of Downers Grove Township Seniors. It's from 5:30 to 7:30, and you're all welcome to come. And they've donated a lot of money for our for the center, so we're trying to raise some more money. That's all I have for supervisor's report. Assessor, I do not have anything to report. I do have something from Andy Anderson for the highway report. He said in the last month, the highway department has been working on the following projects. K through 5, our paving contractor for Clarendon Hills Road project is finished paving of Clarendon Hills Road and follow up with the striping the following day. We continue our fall brush pickup in sections 2, 3, and 4. We have trimmed several trees on our trim list in the Hinswood subdivision and Farmingdale North subdivision. Several road cutbacks were also done ahead of our township paving project. We worked with Gradall operator for our last week of the year. Culverts were replaced in ditching as well as Gradall work and restoration were done in the Women's subdivision, Riverview subdivision. the gardens and Clarendon Hills Road. Several culverts were replaced ahead of our paving project in Babson Park, and we also replaced culverts in the Tri-State subdivision, Timberlake subdivision, and gardens. So that is it from Andy. Do we have any old business to discuss? And any new business?
I have a question.
Sure.
What is a culvert? Is that-
Culvert is the ditch.
So those are in need of repair.
Correct. And we do not have anything to go into executive session with, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
You can have a second.
Second.
All in favor?